Beautiful weather, isn't it?
So from every angle that you see, it's a beautiful motorcycle, isn't it?
And that reminded me of another problem that I faced with the Scrambler. Yeah, I love that rumble, the beautiful rumble of starting the motorcycle.
So friends, today I wanted to talk about how has my experience been of living with the Scrambler for the last 2 months and 2000 kilometers. So before I tell you anything, let me tell you it has been nothing short of an exhilarating experience. Now I have not upgraded from a 150cc or 200cc bike. As you know, I used to ride the BMW GS310 GS before this, and people were kind of questioning my wisdom of shifting from the 310 GS to the Scrambler because they almost fall on the same category. Could not agree more, but there are some subtle differences and some prominent differences, and I will try to capture all the differences today during my ride on the Scrambler, because I have the BMW also fresh in my memory. I have lived with it for almost 25,000 kilometers and almost close to 2 years. So that's what I've done, and today I'm going to express to you as to how I feel or how I have felt in my day-to-day commute on the Scrambler, because I've done extensive traveling from office to work on an everyday basis for the last 2 months, and also done some mild off-roading, not extreme off-roading, which I'm planning to do in the future. And also I have kind of traveled on the highway and done some high-speed runs, which I usually don't do, but I've done just for the sake of testing the limits of this motorcycle. I hope you enjoy my feedback and it helps you take an informed decision when you decide to zero in on the Scrambler 400X, lovely motorcycle, as your next motorcycle of choice. So from every angle that you see, it's a beautiful motorcycle, isn't it? Of course, I have accessorized it a little bit to facilitate my long distance travels. But nonetheless, if you look at the upswept dual barrel exhaust, the beautiful paint finish on the tank, even the shape, the proportion, the size, everything is near perfection. So I don't think anything resembles more a traditional Scrambler than the Scrambler 400X. Triumph does know how to make Scrambler motorcycles. They have been into this business right from the inception of the word Scrambler, and it's a lovely motorcycle, very proportionate and very youthful looking motorcycle, very suited for the Indian riding conditions. I made a video exclusively on what's the difference between the Scrambler and an ADV, and you can look at that video and you will understand why Scramblers make so much sense for our kind of road conditions in India. I don't know if you can make out what motorcycle is that. I'll give you a chance. Well, that's the Rajdut Yamaha 350, the legendary motorcycle from yesteryears, a heavily modified one.
So let me tell you what is fun about living with the Scrambler in the city, and very similar to my experience on my GS in the past. So potholes, broken roads, undulations, broken tarmac, no problem. You are absolutely at home with both these motorcycles. They are equally good, I would say. In fact, the GS was a little tad softer, but it's not a perceivable difference. You can feel that both are equally at home in patches like this when the road is far less than perfect, and you can just sail through while others are having a jolt on their back. The next thing I would like to talk about is how pepper this engine is. There is a perceivable more grunt in the Scrambler compared to my GS, especially at the bottom end, because of the shorter gearing and the additional power and torque figures. This instantly feels more grunty, so it will kind of help you overtake easily and comfortably in tricky traffic situations, and that will make you comfortable and at home in almost any kind of situation within the city and even outside the city limits. It feels more grunty, and that's quite noticeable. you just twist the throttle and lunges forward. So this lunging forward was not there with my GS. It used to have a very linear power delivery. So you twist the throttle and just sails through the gaps and through the, between the vehicles. This is a noticeable difference with the Scrambler compared to the GS. Next, I would like to talk about the maneuverability of this bike. It is definitely more maneuverable because the GS, you pay the price of it, had a more substantial feeling about it. So you know that the GS used to look like a larger bike. It was lighter actually, 10 kilos lighter than the Scrambler, but it used to appear larger and it had bigger proportions. So within the city traffic and filtering between the traffic was not that easy with the GS as it is with the Scrambler. Even between walking pedestrians, you can just filter through the traffic with a plumb. So that's the advantage of living with the Scrambler compared to the GS. And of course, how can I forget talking about the way it sounds? If you frankly ask me what is the thing that I'm enjoying the most, having shifted from my GS to the Scrambler, is number one will be the sound. Of course it's peppy and all that, but I love the sound absolutely, man. It's beautiful. It's music to the ears. I mean, when you close your helmet and you just start it, even at idle, the sound is so beautiful. There is a nice beat to it, and the GS didn't have much of a character. I mean, there was not much of a sound that you would remember that will kind of resonate in your ears, ring in your ears after you have completed your ride. But here, even after you have completed your ride, you will kind of feel the music in your ears. It's beautiful, amazing. The acoustics are important because please remember, these are bikes with which you do not only do city commutes, but you also travel the distance, sometimes on the highway, sometimes for long hours. And how the bike sounds has an important role to play in how much you are enjoying your ride. And if I have to give an example, the example I will give is of the Royal Enfield, the classics. One of the reasons why people love the classics is because of the way they sound, that long stroke, lazy kind of a rumble. People love it. And also the Harleys. So acoustics are important. I do not know why BMW did not pay much attention to the way the GS sounds. It doesn't sound good at all. In fact, it is one of the weakest points, so the weakest links of the bike, I would say. What else? Of course, people would have told you about the build quality. It's supremely good, no gaps, no chipping of paints, nothing. But here, let me tell you something, there are some flaws in the build quality. The Scrambler costs almost a lakh rupees less than the GS right now on road in Bangalore. And of course there has to be corners that have been cut, but they are not perceivable at all. In fact, at some angles it looks better than the GS in terms of the quality that Triumph has managed. One of the advantages of purchasing these international brands is that they have to maintain a certain quality and pay a certain amount of attention to detail, because in those countries they have a higher competition. Couple of things which kind of not really is bothersome but kind of bothered me. One, I would say, is the quality of the chain sprocket. I don't know about the sprocket, but definitely the chain. With my GS I had to kind of lubricate it maybe once in a week or once every 400-500 kilometers. But with the Scrambler, even after cleaning and lubricating it, within 2 days I will find that there is signs of rusting. So I am presuming that I have quickly got to switch on to a brass chain sprocket, roll on or something, but let it run for some time as long as it does. And I have also heard complaints on different forums that the chain slackens or loosens also quite easily. It's not a difficult thing to adjust, but then it also speaks of the quality of the chain sprocket that has been used. Of course, here the comparator is the GS. So this is an area of compromise, I would say. Another area of compromise is of course the headlamp. Oh no, the headlamp of the Scrambler is nothing more than a joke. So I have of course fitted the aux lights, the Mad Dog Scout X, and it does the purpose, serves the purpose. I do not want to have very blinding or powerful lights because there has been a lot of traffic violations that has been recorded for people who are fitting aux lights in Bangalore of late. But nonetheless, you cannot do without an auxiliary pair of lights. If you are riding in the night on the Scrambler, it is as good as nothing. I don't know if this kind of lights work in the countries that Triumph originate from. I don't know, because they might have very powerful street lights everywhere and they do not need, but I do not know what made them think that this kind of lights is going to do when people are intending to ride in the night. Or do you put a disclaimer that ride your motorcycle only during the day and do not do night rides? Then it's fine. So that's something which was perceivably better in my GS. The headlight was very good, and I never needed a aux light actually. I'd fitted in between one, then I'd removed it, and I was perfectly okay living without the aux lights in the GS. The headlight was good enough, at least in the the BS6 version. So I'm doing a refuel actually, and that reminded me of another problem that I faced with the Scrambler, which is a not so good thing about such a beautiful motorcycle, which the manufacturers should pay attention on and try and correct it in the future. Let me finish the refueling and I'll talk about it as we proceed on my journey. So I love that rumble, the beautiful rumble of starting the motorcycle. This I used to miss on the GS. Okay, so you have spoken about a lot of things. Let me speak about another quality issue. Not an issue, I mean compared of course to the BMW G310 GS. The issue is with the key. The key looks beautiful, don't get me wrong. In both the bikes, it's a beautiful set of keys. The nice Triumph logo, the emblem, actually I don't know if you can see. But I think one of my keys got damaged, I think within 2 days of getting my motorcycle out of the showroom. And that is not a nice, pleasant experience, because somehow it was not coming out of the fuel tank lock, and I kind of used some kind of a force and it got bent. It was quite surprising. I did not use a brute force or anything like that. It was just a mild amount of force, pressure, and the key got mildly bent. So I went to the showroom and I asked them that why it is like this, and can I just straighten it a little bit, maybe apply some pressure and straight. They said no, you cannot do it because it has the engine immobilizer. You can see the immobilizer light blinking when you actually shut down the vehicle and see on the instrument cluster. So you cannot do it, he said, and you have to replace the key. That will cost you about 1,500 rupees or something, and that you have to replace both the keys. And that's not something nice. I mean, how does a key like this so easily get bent and damaged? I've used my BMW and I've been in similar kind of situations. So you can see a lot of bikers over there, super bikes, the BMWs, everything, and they are kind of coming here to enjoy their Sunday morning ride and also enjoying their idlis and dosas. Lovely sight. This is what I love when I travel on this road. See, all the food being prepared and bikers gathering for a bite. But anyways, I'll proceed on my journey. So yes, I was talking about the keys. I don't think it is as good quality wise as the GS, and so I'm using the second pair of keys. I have not yet replaced my keys, but I am now extra careful with the amount of pressure I apply on the keys, and sometimes it's not very smooth the way it comes out of the fuel tank or it comes out from the seat cover, etc. Because now I know that it is not a very tough material like my GS, so I have to be a little careful. So these are some small quality niggles that kind of keep on bothering you. Okay, so I'm on the highway now. I'll speak a little bit about the highway manners, although I have done a dedicated vlog about it. The next thing is about the position of the brake lever on the right hand side on your foot peg. And when I initially bought the GS, I used to complain about it, that why is the brake lever so tucked inside, and sometimes you have to literally kind of bend your foot inwards in order to touch or apply the brakes. Why can't you put your feet straight? It used to be a little painful in the beginning, but then I realized it's a small ergonomic thing and safety thing, and it helped, because when you are keeping your feet on the foot peg and you are kind of if your brake lever is right in front of your toe, then you will be constantly touching the brake lever, which is good in terms of safety, because you are always alert to apply the brakes whenever it's required. But then it kind of also wears off the brake faster. With the Scrambler, it is not the case. So the brake is right in front of your the foot lever. The brake lever is right in front of your foot peg, the right hand side foot peg, and you kind of don't have a choice. Either you have to remove your feet from the brake lever completely and commence your ride. You can do that on the highways when you don't intend to apply brakes very frequently, but when you're riding inside the city, you will probably require to have contact, some kind of a contact with the brake, or at least have it easily accessible. So in the BMW, the contact was not required, was not possible also, because the brake was tucked a little inside the brake lever, but it was very easily accessible. I had to just rotate my feet. I need not to move the position of the feet and apply the brakes. So this is another thing that, small thing, I don't think anybody has spoken about it, but this is something I noticed. I'm on the highway right now, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of speed and show you how easy it is. So I'm currently on the 6th gear, and I'm doing about 2,500-3,000 RPM. I'm going to just ring the throttle, and that's another Speed 400, the younger brother of the Scrambler, and this is the Hunter. They're also enjoying the ride like me. So all you have to do is kind of twist the throttle, and you quickly pick up the speed. See, 80 km/h. 100 comes in a jiffy. Anyways, I've spoken about the highway performance, so I'm not going to talk about it today. It's a very pleasurable motorcycle as long as you want to do. But then there is not much of difference between this and my GS in terms of the high speeds that you can do. So this will do 120 easily. Also my GS also used to do. Probably this will do about 10 to 15 km/h higher speed at a certain rev range or at a certain gear, which my GS will take a tad longer time, but those are not perceivable differences. The major difference comes in the city riding actually, and off-roading of course, because the GS was of course a capable off-roader. Probably it was a more capable off-roader because the greater suspension travel. But please understand, the challenge with the GS was the lack of torque, low end torque. It was enough, the amount of low end torque, but it was 10 Nm less than the Scrambler, and that is perceivable when you go in off-road sections. And so first gear, second gear, you get, even in the third gear, you don't need to do the gear changes, frequent gear changes. With my GS you need it, and with the ADV 390 you will do even more frequent gear changes. So when the motorcycle is of a Scrambler or an ADV format, it needs a lot of bottom end torque, because it is supposed to go off-road. It's supposed to go in this kind of terrain. That's why it has been purpose built, and the bottom end torque is so necessary. And that is why, if you see the earlier Himalayan, the 411 was so popular and so such a favorite about among people who used to go to Ladakh, Spiti and all those places and also do off-road terrains, because although it was a very heavy bike, it was 10-15 kilos heavier than my Scrambler, but the bottom and grunt was so beautiful that it used to manage any terrain quite easily. And the most beautiful part is when you come across a rumble strip like this. See, I'm sitting, I'm not standing. But you could see the super meteor guy, he had to significantly slow down, which I did not have to do on my Scrambler, neither did the other Scrambler. It happens instinctively, you don't have to plan it, because you know what your motorcycle is capable of and the kind of beating it can take. You react accordingly. It kind of gets inbuilt in your system when you ride a particular motorcycle. It's a group of Harleys, Hog maybe, Harley owners group. Pretty disciplined riders, professional ones probably, giving the right signals, the right indicators while overtaking or taking a turn. Very important. I think that's biking etiquette that all bikers should know. So there is a difference between being a biker and a motorcyclist, I always say. So biker is anybody who rides a bike, but a motorcyclist is one who takes it as a lifestyle, as a hobby or as a passion, and does it for the enjoyment or the pleasure of biking and not for just reaching from point A to point B. So that's the Iron 883. That's a fat boy. Lovely sight, isn't it? This one, I don't know, maybe the night rod. Let me catch up. So the Scrambler 400 is of course not 2 cylinders, not a V-twin, but it's also quite a capable bike. It can definitely keep up with some of the big bikes, unless of course they intend to kind of beat you black and blue. And that's a fun. It's got enough grunt actually. So in the top end I have done almost 160, and that's not bad speed in the Indian road conditions, I can tell you. It's decent speed. Of course I don't like riding at those speeds because I love enjoying my rides rather than bringing the throttle to its extreme end. See how easily I got over this bump, and the Harleys are really struggling. Even the Scrambler has got a nice rumble to it, not bad considering it is just a single. Beautiful sight, isn't it? Mountains, a lake, lovely overcast sky, and a group of Harleys and my Scrambler following them. Such a nice experience.
So I love sharing my ride experiences, my experience of living with these two-wheeled wonders. And if you love listening to the content I create, and if you relate to the stuff that I talk about, please do hit the subscribe button and do not forget to give it a thumbs up if you do like it.